Do you think that, I mean, looking back, I mean, what are some of the mistakes that you made that maybe you would change if you were to go back? Any mistakes?
Sure. Yeah. I think at first I was, again, a college student who didn't have much money. And so my place was not that beautiful. And there wasn't a lot of competition at the time. So I don't think it really mattered. But knowing what I know now, I really focus on design and I really focus on professional photos because the advertising, the marketing piece is huge. And again, it's competition these days that we didn't have back then. And then I think another thing that I see now is it's incredible how fast you can see people building. And I think it's because they have an example. You're hearing about people getting, 10 units in a couple of months or something like that. And if you hear that and you know there's a path to it, it makes you believe that you could probably do the same. And I just didn't have an example like that. So I took it really slow. I got about a place a year and over time that built up to a nice portfolio, but it was not the rocket launch start.
Yeah, you see some of these people and you're like, I mean, they're just empires after a couple of years. So yeah, I get it.
Hmm.
And maybe too, I mean, would you say you're more on the conservative side or you're more of a risk taker? Where are you?
I'm definitely a risk taker, but what changed my pace was the fact that I was really into the FIRE movement. So I'm not sure if your listeners know about that, but that is financial independence, retire early. And so for me, what I was focused on was just getting enough so that I was financially independent and not building an excess. And I think nowadays, and especially in real estate and especially in social media, you see a lot of flash. And so people are wanting to do something really impressive. And I was just trying to have a super cool, chill life. So it's different,
So
different goals.
no, I get it. I get it. I went into business. A lot of my listeners know my story, but in case somebody doesn't know my story, I started in business at 21. I was financially independent by 28. So I had saved $1 million in cash and I had a business that was paying me a $500,000 a year in passive income. So that was kind of
Yeah.
my goal. My goal though, Ziana, was kind of like yours in the sense that I just wanted to get free. Like my whole goal
Yeah.
was to be retired by the time I was 30. I wanted to be done and just be safe on my own island. Now I look back and I go, man, I could have made millions and millions of more dollars. But then I kind of went, well, maybe it's okay what I did because I've been free for like 20 years now. So I've had complete
Absolutely.
financial freedom, and so I've traveled the world. I've done all these things. We're going to talk about your story as well, but
Sure.
because that's kind of why you did it, right? I mean, you did it because you
Yes.
wanted to travel the world. I think you've been to like 48 countries or something like that. So
Sure
tell us
have.
about tell us about like what it feels like to be financially free.
Yeah, I think it is a safety that is unparalleled. And it really depends on how someone grows up. But I was raised on very limited income. My family just was not good with money, and they were always kind of struggling. And so I knew that I wanted something different, and to be able to provide that safety for myself was really important. And so I think for anyone, I would recommend just getting to that baseline. It sounds like you were probably financially independent way before you actually called yourself that, because 500 grand a year is a lot more than most people need to live off of, air quotes need. So I think that's the
I don't
first
know how I
thing.
don't know how people survive on less than 500. No, I'm playing with you. I'm playing with you.
Well, it
Keep,
depends
keep,
where you
keep
live.
going.
You have a
Keep,
very beautiful background there,
keep
so maybe
going.
you're in a very expensive place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, it's just different goals, different strokes for different folks.
Right. And so but that's kind of but I think the bottom line is that you got to have a goal. And I do a coaching program. It's called Wealth on the Beach Club every Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I was coaching this morning, and we're doing our year end, goal planning session, and we're going through all the goals, and we're going through all the different areas, and it's interesting because so many people are not clear on what they want. And I think what's cool about your story is you were very intentional. You were very clear on what it is that you wanted. You knew how much you needed to have. You knew how many properties you needed to have. You knew exactly what you needed to do year by year to get to where you wanted to get to at whatever particular time, specific time you wanted to get there. And so how important were those goals that I mean, did you write them down? Did you have, like how did you plan for what you did?
Yeah, so I kind of copied other people's goals, which I think can be a good thing. But I had been reading a blog. So this is kind of going back to that idea of if you see someone who's done it, you can find that path for yourself. But I was reading a blog called Mr. Money Mustache, which is all about the financial independence movement. And he retired by 30. And I was 26 when I was reading it. It just so happened that it was a little bit before I got into doing Airbnb. So kind of all happened at the same time. But I thought, well, I have no money. I was in $50,000 of student debt. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But maybe if I just set this goal and try to get to where he is, then I can also do it too. And so it partially manifesting, and partially seeing that somebody could do it. So it was something I could believe in. But beyond that, I think what really helps, and I try to tell people to do this with their goal setting, is find out what your absolute needs are and figure out what that number is. And then also find out what your wants are. So for an example, maybe you only need $3,000 or $4,000 to live off of, and that covers your mortgage and your food and just basic needs. And then maybe to travel and do a lot of extra things, you want more like 5 or 6. But if you can figure out a way to passively get that $3,000 a month covered, you're in a really good spot, because you don't need to be saving for retirement once you've got that passive income locked in, right? And I think people often set their goal really high, and then it's harder to get there and it takes them longer.
And so you're saying that get to that minimum baseline and say, okay, this is what I need, get to that area. And then once you're there, well, sky's the limit if you want, but really it's just up to whatever you want after that point. And I like how you talked about, because I am in financial planning. I run a financial services company for over 25 years now. And of course, we are in the retirement planning universe, right? We teach people how to, retire and plan for it and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is, if you have passive income coming in that never stops, and really, if you're thinking about real estate, somebody always needs somewhere to sleep. I mean, even right now, would you say that even in the market right now, I mean, this is a great time to own apartments, a great time to own property that you can rent out, because it's kind of like even tough right now. I mean, apartments are like 95, almost 100% full vacant. I mean, full occupied right now. Am I correct here? Or?
Yeah, I think people saw in the last 2 years, so like 2020, 2021, inflation exploded. And beyond that, so the house prices went up, but also rent went up really high. And so if you'd already bought something, your mortgage is not going to change that much, but your rent is not something you can control. And so for a lot of people, they're scrambling around now because they didn't plan for that. And so if you are someone who owns property, that tide rises all boats, right? So the inflation thing doesn't hurt us as much, because with that, our property values go up. And then with that, we can actually charge more in rent. So it is an asset that I feel really good about. And even buying in a recession, I think there's always a good time to buy real estate. And I think it's always something that you can depend on. And it really helps build your retirement nest egg.
Thank you for watching our short clips on Alonzo Academy. If you'd like to watch the next short clip, click here. If you'd like to watch the entire podcast, click here.